to be a better defender than I do a midfielder. He did have a decent game. In terms of next captain for Spurs, I can't see beyond Kane, to be perfectly honest with you. It was quite interesting. I was listening to a podcast earlier that Last Word on Spurs did when they had Martin Lipton on, who's a Spurs fan and has just written a book. And he was quite adamant that Dier was definitely keen in the summer to leave Spurs. All those rumours that with Manchester United had some legs, let's say. So it kind of questions me leads me to question where Dier's head will be at long term for Spurs. Hopefully he's over that. It was just a phase, and he'll just knuckle down. And if we start winning things, then it won't be an issue. But in terms of the next captain or long-term captain, I can't see beyond Kane. That said, though, I mean, how old's Hugo now? He's what, 30?
31.
31. 30. Yeah, I mean, keepers can go on till they're 35, 36. So
True.
If the guy is content, then, the captaincy doesn't become an issue after that.
Yeah, you look at Gigi Buffon, who's 40 and still doing it at a world-class level. And for the most part, and Simon would probably know more than anyone, as a former keeper, keepers hit their prime at 30, correct?
Yeah, late 20s, early 30s. I mean, Vass, when we signed Ray Clements, who was at the height of his game with Liverpool, and they discarded him as much as we discarded Jennings, Clements went on to play another 7 or 8 seasons. Jennings, good Lord, he played another 6 or 7 at Arsenal, and then came back to us. So, those guys can be a lot fitter because they don't have to run around so much. But it's the hand-eye coordination. We talked about Czech's training routine with ping pong balls, and Czech's mid-30s. So top goalkeepers have a much better shelf life than obviously outfield players. So more power to them.
Yeah, they can go to their late 30s quite easily, the keepers. So I think it all just comes down to Spurs as a team and Pochettino just continuing to galvanise this squad. Then I don't really think that the captaincy will be an issue of any real relevance for the foreseeable future, to be fair.
Hey, Tim, so I was at work Friday, and I saw that the Germany-England match was kicking off on social media, and I saw a couple of tweets, I guess, from Arsenal fans going, "How the hell is Jake Livermore in the lineup and Wilshere is not?" Now I'm pretty animated about my opinion of Wilshere, not just because he's an Arsenal player, but I think he is by far the most underachieving English footballer in the history of underachieving English footballers, based on the hype of this kid coming into his career. What are your thoughts? I know that you don't care so much about the England national team itself, but when you see someone like a Jake Livermore getting a nod over Wilshere, and there's other players I think that may be in line even with Livermore that would get a nod before Wilshere. Does that resonate with you at all?
I mean, yeah, former Spurs, wasn't going to make it here at Spurs. It didn't have much of a future. So to see a player like that who couldn't cut it with our first team, still making it out over Arsenal's first team players, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And also, I mean, it's good with Jake Livermore coming back from, what he's gone through recently, to see him get that call up. Anytime you snub Wilshere, I think it's good.
Yeah, that's true. I was looking at this match, and I thought, let me do a little bit of research and find some fun facts for this match, and I don't know if you guys have some as well. Do you realize, the last time they beat us in a league match was March of 2014? I put that in the rundown. I was actually kind of shocked to hear that, but there's been a lot of draws or us winning at home since March 16th of 2014. There's a current run of 6 Premier League matches without a defeat to Arsenal, which is currently the longest streak. Going into the 2-0 victory at home last year, 5 had ever been the longest streak of losses had not won again, or they had not beat us rather in Premier League history. So we are on the current run is the high run of 6
I'm not surprised by it because you look at it, that's the last time they played us before Pochettino. I mean, this is a new era here at Spurs.
And if anything defines that stat should, right?
Exactly, yeah. They have not been able to beat us in a Premier League match since before Pochettino came.
What about you, Sam?
Long may that continue.
Long may that continue. What about you, Sam? Any ideas on or thoughts on how Pochettino? We've talked about his transformation of the club, but does that stat define a little bit of what he's doing here?
Yeah, I think it does. I genuinely do. I've been very poll happy this week. You guys noticed that?
Yeah, you have.
But this game, and what we've been doing this four seasons now? Is that right? We're in our fourth season, third or fourth.
Fourth. Yeah.
All right, and you always kind of hear me talk a couple of times in the season saying this point marks an inflection point. Like this match is critical. And I think one of the questions that I asked this week was, would you take a draw? And uniformly, well, I think it was probably at 2.5, 3-1 that people said absolutely hell no. So if that doesn't speak to sort of where we are, many times when we come into this match, people would just be like, Christ, just want to get a draw, just be done with it and move on. Far from that this year. But I'm going to go a step further. We've talked a lot about this season, about the importance of silverware, et cetera. We questioned our commitment to the Carabao Cup. Did I get that right this time? But I honestly believe that this is every bit as important as that silverware, and I think that for a number of reasons. Number one, because we're on the heels of a very good showing against Madrid, which is great. We've got to prove that that's not a one-off. This is obviously an intensely important match, irrespective of where either of these teams are in the table. There are massive bragging rights here. It puts them in the rearview mirror, and it starts building what I kind of view as mini silverware, because it's going to allow us to, give ourselves belief in the FA Cup, give ourselves belief as we continue on in the Champions League, give ourselves belief as we try to chase down Man City. So I firmly believe that this match is the most important of this half and will serve as much in some respects as winning silverware in a silly cup. Rant.
No, and I totally get that. I totally understand.
Yeah,
that.
this is a big one. This is a really, really, really big one. So, I always think about wow, what's he say to these guys? Like, what does he say in the, in the dressing room? And how do you get these guys up? And how do you get their focus to be? I think that these players get it. I really do. That book, I've always kind of felt it. That book sort of validated a lot of my thinking, and he's a relationship guy, and I think he's got deep relationships developed with these players that they all understand the importance of this match.
Simon, is that one of the tough things that as supporters, and as, let's just not say, there's different levels of supporters, right? There's people that expect the world and maybe not and shouldn't, right? And then there's supporters that I think are maybe a little more cerebral and understand how this all kind of ties and works together. But when you're a supporter and you see Pochettino transforming the landscape at your club and doing it on, I don't know what we are, Sam, either the fifth or sixth highest payroll, and then all of a sudden maybe you do incur some draws. We are, as they say, punching above our weight in terms of dollars and cents for the results that we are seeing on the pitch. Are you fearful as a Tottenham supporter that may eventually catch up to us even this year? Simon?
Well, that's a loaded question. I mean, it can. We've really got to look at the depth of the squad to see if we can maintain. We're suddenly picking up injuries very early in the season that we wouldn't have done so last season. I mean, one here and there, but suddenly we've got, 4 in a couple of games in 1 week, key players from the first team out. So I think, putting it all into perspective, if the squad stays healthy, if they stay fit, that we can challenge on all fronts without them showing signs of weakness in concentration or what have you, then I think we can maintain. But it's It's the loaded question of how do we take what we're trying to do this season and bridge that gap as we approach the new stadium. And I think it's the $1 million question there. Who can answer that one and nail it on at the end of the day? Tough one.
Yeah, I just think it's whatever the footballing gods will allow at that time, right?
Right, absolutely.
Timmy, I know that you're kind of interested in something that happened with Harry Winks. He did, as we talked about and alluded to, pull out of England duty. A little bit of a knock, and as Spurs supporters, we were happy about that. We want him to be well rested for the North London derby. But as it turns out, we find out that Harry loves a little bit of a party, does he not?
Well, so the thing is, last night this Chav supporter attempts to get Twitter famous, and he calls Winksy over for a quick selfie with him, and then posts it on Twitter, tagging the Sun, and then asking. Then he has like a comment afterwards, like, "Why don't I have a blue check yet? I'm trending on Twitter." Like, fuck this guy. All the comments, he's got like he has like 1,100 comments on it, and most everyone's calling him a grass. So it's at Nickelodeon16. Go on that, post a tweet, call him a grass. I mean, this guy, he gives no context behind it. What time of night is it? Winks doesn't even have a drink in his hand, so is he even drinking? It's just some douchebag trying to become famous on Twitter. But I don't personally have a problem with it. I mean, how fit do you have to be to go stand around at a nightclub? It doesn't show him like partying on tables or any shit like that. He's just standing there.
Yeah. We've already proven that you can, blow out an ankle or a knee and still play Call of Duty. So
exactly.
You can still, be social and not be a complete recluse and sit in your apartment and mope.
But yeah, I mean, there are some people upset that, you can't go play for your country, but you can go party at a nightclub.
Yeah, just wankers, a lot of them.
This is true.
Back to Chair's point though about the injuries. I hear what he's saying about the squad depth might be some measure for how well we're going to do this season. But bear in mind that at this same point last season or thereabouts, we were again without Alderweireld. Kane had already been injured. We lost Lamela around this time as well. So, we had to cope with a fair number of injuries last season, on and off. Kane was out twice in the end, wasn't he? Dembele was out as well. Rose was out he only played like half the season. And we coped. And I think this season we do have slightly more strength in depth, as it were. And maybe, who knows, come January we'll add one or two more. So the squad strength has improved. So we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, definitely. And Sissoko's a different prospect than he was last year at this time. So it's almost like having a different person on the roster to help fill one of those spots as injury does get incurred. But yeah, to everyone's point, it will be interesting to see if we do continue to suffer an injury here and there, how Pochettino rotates the squad, both Europe, FA Cup. Still a lot that's alive here, right? A lot of things that we have to compete in, a lot of different tournaments, a lot of in the league, of course, and injuries are going to be incurred. It's part of the game. We noticed that when Leicester won the league a couple of years back, they were nearly injury-free the entire time. So that cohesiveness and chemistry that goes along with being fortunate enough as a club not to incur and suffer those injuries matters. I think keeping the same 11 on the pitch and maybe even the same 6 in the seats waiting to come on matters. So it'll be very interesting to see how the rest of the year unfolds in terms of that. Something new that we're going to start doing here on the show that I'm really looking forward to, ought to be quite fun, is that Simon, who is our resident anorak and basically encyclopedia of all things Tottenham, is going to start doing a 5-question-a-week stump your ass Q&A segment. So much, if you will. So he's going to read questions. All of us, coincidentally, have 1-syllable names. So Vass, Tim, Sam, and myself. And we will answer with our name. That will be our buzzer. So he's going to read a question. Then that person will buzz in with their name. Whoever buzzes in first, according to Simon, will get to answer the question. If they get it right, they get points. I'm not 100%